Today we're going to talk about 5 of the most popular ways to mix cocktails: shaking, double shaking, stirring, building, and blending. In this episode, I'm going to try and help you understand which technique you use when you're making certain drinks, the impact it has on the drink, and also give you some examples of drinks that use each technique. So, let's have a look at it. So before we get into those 5 different methods of mixing drinks, we want to talk about why exactly you do this. And there are 3 primary reasons. Number 1 is to mix the ingredients together. Number 2 is to chill the drink. And number 3 is to bring some dilution to the drink. Whichever method you go for, you need to be quite intentional with, because it's going to have a big impact on the texture of the drink primarily. So first of all, we're going to talk about shaking. So when it comes to shaking a cocktail, there are a few things you really need to think about. First of all, you want to make sure you use plenty of ice. Even though it seems kind of contradictory, using more ice actually gives you a slower dilution because the drink stays nice and cold. Whereas if you just add 1 or 2 ice cubes, they're going to melt pretty quickly and they're actually going to dilute the drink before you reach the texture you're looking for. Again, whichever shaker you go for, make sure you seal the 2 together nice and tight, and you want to hold onto it with 2 hands. 1 hand on top, 1 hand underneath. And when you shake, there are many different ways to shake a cocktail. And the evidence seems to suggest that whichever way you go for can be greatly effective, as long as you shake it for around about 12 to 15 seconds. So if you want to read more about this, you can read Liquid Intelligence, which does a lot of work into this. But fundamentally, plenty of headroom, shake it really hard end to end, and make sure the ice has plenty of room to travel and the drink also goes up and down through the shaker. You don't want to go side to side because it's just kind of going all over the place without really mixing. You want to use the full capacity of this shaker to get as much back and forth as you possibly can in the drink. The same applies for your kind of 3-piece shaker, top and bottom. Make sure you hold on nice and tight so you don't have any spillages. Shake, shake, shake. Could be a kind of up and down, could be a over the shoulder, could be straight back and forward, but it has to feel comfortable, has to get the job done, and shake nice and hard. Really important, however you shake hard. But when would you do this? So these are kind of rules of thumb. They're made to be broken, but they're also there for a particular reason. So shaking a cocktail is usually done when there's citrus in the drink, when there's dairy in the drink, or when you want to really aerate the drink to get it nice and vibrant and bubbly and foamy and alive. So this is found in lots of different cocktails: daiquiri, Last Word, Paper Plane. These are all shaken cocktails because they all contain citrus. But if you want to take this 1 step further and get even more texture on your drink, you can do what's called a double shake. So one of the key variations of shaking a cocktail is called a double shake, and this incorporates a dry shake. So rather than just shaking the drink once with ice, you're actually going to do 2 shakes, once with ice and once without, either dry first or dry second. If you do the dry shake first, where you just shake the cocktail to kind of emulsify it, that will be a dry shake, whereas if you do it after the main shake with ice, that's a reverse dry shake. So both of these work really well. Experiment with both. But when I talked about emulsification, that's kind of important here because it's going to be used when you incorporate things like egg white or aquafaba or even pineapple juice. You can use this technique in drinks which are sour based, like a whiskey sour or a pisco sour, or even something like a white lady. I actually try and avoid this process as much as possible because it is a little bit fiddly. If you're using things like pineapple juice, egg white and aquafaba, you do want that really foamy texture. But if you also use ice that's fresh out of the freezer, you can just give it a single really hard shake over ice and avoid the need to do this. But if your ice has been out of the freezer a little bit longer, you might want to do this so you don't shake it too hard and overly dilute the drink. So now we've got a shake, we've got a double shake, we can talk about stirring cocktails. So if you're making a drink that doesn't contain citrus or it's almost entirely booze, you might want to stir the drink. And this doesn't add anywhere near as much aeration as your shaking and double shaking. It's kind of silkier, more refined, a little bit smoother, but equally powerful. So you do this when you're making drinks like a martini, as long as it's not a shaken martini, a Manhattan, a Martinez, and an old fashioned. And if you think about the texture of those drinks, they're very elegant, very silky, not kind of vibrant and alive, which is what you're going to get with a shaken drink. So again, the technique for this can be really simple. You just want to stir the drink down over lots of ice using a bar spoon ideally, but also a chopstick might work. And then once you reach the level of dilution you're looking for, strain it out and you'll get that really nice silky cocktail. This retains a lot of really nice aromatics of the drink, but also it gives a really nice kind of clear final drink, which obviously if you're shaking the drink, you're going to aerate it and lose that. So now we've got our shaken drinks, our double shaken drinks, and our stirred drinks. We're going to look at building drinks. So when it comes to building drinks, what this means is building the drink in the glass. Something like a mojito would be a really good example of this, or any drink that you're going to top with something like soda water, tonic, or even sparkling wine. And the reason to do this is to avoid overly diluting the drink, or to keep the entire pieces of fruit, herbs or spices in the final drink. So when it comes to the mojito, you're actually muddling the mint into the drink and leaving it in there. But you do have to be careful that if you're building in the drink, you don't break the glass when you muddle too hard. So now we're going to talk about the final technique today, which is going to be blending. So a final technique we can look at, which is featured in things like a pina colada and all sorts of frozen cocktails, is going to be blending drinks. And this is really useful if you want to leave the entire fruit in the drink, or to get that kind of really nice blended, smooth, almost creamy texture, if you can add something like coconut milk or cream. And it's just a really interesting way to do things where you actually blend the ice completely into the drink rather than straining it out. So when it comes to adding ice, if you add a little bit of ice, you'll get a kind of almost milkshake texture. Whereas if you add a lot of ice, it'll become very thick, almost like a slushy. So there's no right and wrong here. I prefer it a little bit on the looser side so you can at least drink it rather than eating it. But your mileage may vary. If you like disco drinks, you might like them to be kind of slushy drinks, which is totally fine. But I like to go a little bit lighter, a little bit more pourable, a little bit more sippable, and we'll see a pina colada in the future, which I'm very excited to share with you. So now I've got a really good foundation to build upon. We've covered some essential bottles, some essential tools, the importance of balance, sweetening drinks, seasoning drinks, all sorts of ways of presenting the drinks, including ice, clear ice, garnishes. I think we're pretty much ready to start mixing some cocktails.